My name is Vie Boheme, and I represent an organization called Bohemian Way. We specialize in craft refinement and creative business management education programs for creative people. I am also a performer and an entertainer. I do all the things on the stage. And what makes what I do creative, I would say that the way that I approach creating space for communication to happen, which I feel is really my specialty, I think I'm very creative in my approach to that. In taking things from one industry and another and mixing them together, or seeing a problem in one place and seeing a solution in a completely unrelated industry and solving a problem across industries. So I think my approach to everything I do is just always in some sort of creative realm.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Vie. I am Mazig. I own AM and Associates, a Minneapolis-based consulting firm where I work with small business owners on back office operations, essentially how the business runs. What makes what I do creative? I get to bring about a unique approach to each one of my clients in solving problems for them, and I love it.
Beautiful. My name is Za'Nia Coleman. I co-founded our collective called Tangible Collective back in 2017. I'm also an interdisciplinary artist, and I do a lot of production and curating. I say most of my life feels very creative, solely because I think I function as an artist, and then I also function as a curator of spaces, of places, of people, of things, of history. So, yeah.
What is money? What is it even? And what does it mean to you?
I think I can maybe start with, I would say at the beginning of me figuring out what I wanted to do with my life, I just knew that like how I made my money, I didn't want a 9-to-5 coming out of college. So out of undergrad, I was like, no 9-to-5 for me. I know I need some money to live, but like it was very obscure about how much that necessarily was. And I think I've always thought about money as very much so the bare minimum to get my needs met, versus like as a starting place with a number. It's always been like the kind of money or the amount of money I would get was associated with the lifestyle that I wanted. And so for a while, my priority was just like no 9-to-5. So I was kind of down for whatever that came with at the time. That's definitely evolved, thank God, into something a little more educated, something a little more like grounded in something. Yeah.
No, that's so on point, because when I think about it, it's about what are we exchanging? What value are we exchanging to be able to get something that we value in return for that exchange? I recognize that I'm coming maybe from a more legal perspective of the exchange that happens, right? But recognizing that a lot of creatives, what is it that you're doing in exchange for what it is that you're getting back of value as it pertains to capital, to be able to continue doing what it is that you want to do, but also live the life that you want to live in the process. What does financial wellness look like for you as a creative person?
What does financial wellness look like for me as a creative person? I think financial wellness looks like not spending 100% of the budget.
Was that something that came over time? Like your understanding of that, or where that came from?
Yeah. I mean, you do enough projects where you don't have anything to take into the next one. Starting from zero with every project, you're like, this ain't it. I don't have anything. Like, where am I gonna get the money for this project? I I had all this money, like 100% that came in is 100% what went out. Like, you do that enough times and you're like, okay, this can't be, that's not sustainable. Like, I don't have anything to take into the next project, so I have to do this different. I would just, I think that's a starting point. Learning to just, being well is not spending 100% of the budget, so that you have, that's what I think, having something to go into the next is a part of what creates wellness, because it's a part of what creates sustainability. And that's a hard thing to do when you're creative and you're excited and you want to do fun things and you want things to look good. You know, it's very hard to figure out where to stop the buck or where to like cut costs exactly. And that can be even harder when you don't have space to store anything. So then you are kind of like, you have to buy everything repeatedly. So, yeah.
So some of it is like strategic planning.
That what you said made me think about, because I kind of, like I said, money wasn't like a focus of mine or like in my purview, especially when I started doing creative work or even started working for like art. Always felt like something that was going to be for the love and out of my pocket, or like no money was going to come. So early on, like no money had ever came my way for anything. We did not like sell tickets. We didn't do anything in that way. And I remember me and my business partner, Ricky, we were like, oh, let's have concessions at some of our first open mics that we had. And so we went to Costco and we got like concessions and we had snacks. And I think we spent way more than we made. But the fact that at the end of the night we had cash in our hand, we were just like, we made our first money from something. We would have made no money. No money was made, like in an actual business context.
No money had been made.
No money had been made. We have like a video reel of us dancing with the money and like throwing the money. It was literally like $93. Like so excited. That was like the highlight of the thing. And so it was just like, yeah, like I think creatively, even hearing you talk about like spending the full budget, early on, we never had a budget. We never even thought about a budget. And then like making the transition to thinking about money from not thinking about money was so hard, because there were just like multiple levels of, what is this worth? Yeah. How much do I need? Like, especially when you're used to doing it for nothing.
I know.
It's like, people are like, oh, like, what's your budget? Or like, oh, what's your price? Like, that used to stress me out so much. I'm like, what's your budget? Like, I don't know. Like, what do you mean? Like, what would you normally pay somebody? And it's like, what kind of question even is that to ask in negotiations around money? But yeah, I think that just the learning curve of it is so high. If it wasn't a foundational piece, like, the learning curve is just so high.
Yeah. No, that's huge.
Yeah.
I didn't answer the first question, so I want to answer it.
Yeah.
What is money and what does it mean to you? What even is money? I feel like money at different times in my life has like meant different things. I think for a long time, money was like a stressful necessity to survive. You know, it was a very short, graspy energy around money, and like a hungry, grasping energy is like what money felt like, of like I could never make more or make enough of it, and I couldn't really get ahead in some ways, was like a part of the mentality that I had around it. What is it? It wasn't something that I had a good energy around. But I guess there was a transition to recognizing money as a tool and a resource, which is such a cliche thing, but it always felt like fucking bullshit when I heard people say that. It was just like, it's a resource. It's just something that it's gonna come, it's gonna go. I'm like, that's cool.
When?
You know, but how do I do that? You know, how do I operate like that? And I think when I started to, in two ways, one, apply for grant funding, and got enough of it to work with it, to make things with it, you know what I'm saying? That was helpful to be like, oh, it is kind of something that creates pathways in exchange. But also, I think in that transition, I learned that money isn't the only thing that can be exchanged, right? Like there's sometimes absolute just knowledge and information can be equal to cash in one way or another. It can give you just the information you need to sit in a room to get more money or to access money, or sometimes it's practical materials, you know, like the quality, like having furniture that you can use for a show or whatever have you, like sometimes that equates to the cash that you don't have to spend to buy it. So I think that money is, I feel now it's like a cash, it's energy. If you can sit your mind in that space.
But you talking about energy makes me think about the wellness question, because for me, I'm not like, I think financial wellness, for me it's very like contextual, and it's very like in the moment, and it's like how I feel about, however my emotions are feeling about the output that I'm doing for the money that I'm receiving. Like I think the energy around the money for me, it determines like the healthiness of the money. 'Cause like there are times when I can like make a lot of money and I have a goal in my mind for like why I'm in this position and why I'm in this place that I may not, like I've done like corporate commercials and things, and like corporate film work is very boring and mundane. But like when you have a goal and you're like, I know at the end of these 5 shoots, I can get this. Like the energy feels totally different than just like an endless pit of like corporate commercials. And it's like, I hate it here. This money does not mean the same thing to me as it did when I had a reason for being here. So I think that for me, money and the energy component is like the emotions I have around the work I'm doing for the money. Because I think the further I've gotten into like my financial literacy journey, like at times I'm even willing to like to have less money, knowing that I'll be doing less work, like changing how I think about my labor and my output. So like there are seasons in my life I'm like, oh, if I just budget an extra $500 or like pare down my spending by like $500, I don't have to work that job. I'm like, oh, that's worth it to me. Like I'm fine with that. I just won't eat out as much at this point. But like even little things like that, like it has really changed how I feel about my income and like where money's coming from. And it's like, is that labor? Does it add up? Is it making sense? And like if it doesn't, it's like I'd much rather take a nap. So
Queen of naps over there.
I appreciate that perspective, because when I think of financial wellness, I think of the sustainability once the dollars come in. Like, are they working as hard as I am for them, for me in return? So it's like, oh, am I setting aside enough for eventual retirement or investments, or, you know, is my interest rate good on my account so that, again, it's working as hard for me as I did for it initially. So I appreciate the shift of perspective of like, what is wellness and how do we connect to it? That makes a big difference.
Yeah, because I mean, I think even about the anxiety of money, I think once I bought my grandmother's home in 2020, and so I feel like home ownership as like an asset or like a value is like a new concept for me. And I think in a lot of spaces with people who already have money, property ownership like that's like a very like casual way of acquiring wealth, or like it's a very common thing. And a lot of the spaces that I'm in, that isn't as common, and it's not as like just in conversation. So it's like even figuring out how much I think there's like an alleviation of anxiety even around housing security when you think about home ownership. Like even the turnaround for like, let's say when I bought the house, I was like, okay, worst case scenario, I have to give it back. Like that's the worst case scenario if like my freelance work isn't working out, and for whatever reason, I always love worst case scenarios just so I can like conceptualize what I would need to do. But then it was just like, okay, it's a long process before somebody just like throws you out of your house. And so it's like there's conversations about like your mortgage and refinancing and like all those different things that's like, until you're exposed to it, you don't know the tools that it can, like the tools that you have at your disposal when you're thinking about it.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
What gave you the courage and the confidence to purchase your grandma's house?
I think at first I was just like, I want it. And I actually didn't, my grandma had passed, and my mom and my aunt had held the house for 2 years. And I initially was like, I want the house. My mom was like, no. Like, my mom was like, no.
Not that look.
Shout the
She
flat.
she was like, you don't know what you're doing. Like, no, like you just want it because it's there. And I was like, no, I want it. And like 2 years had passed, and I didn't even know like what my income could get me, or what my credit could get me, and I didn't know any of that. I always think about it like Chuck E. Cheese tokens. It's like, what can I get for this? Like, what I got? Like, tell me what I can
Price
get.
counter, like the teeny eraser, or
Tell me what I can get. And so my mom hooked me up with a loan officer, and she just like ran my credit and like ran my money and like told me what I qualified for.
Yeah.
It was very painless and it was very quick. And I was like, okay, so at least have a number to know like what I could afford, or like what can you get in this market? Like all the conversations
Not
were
Chuck
like,
E. Cheese. That's sending me because it's clicking for me.
I was like, what can I get? Because I had bought my first big girl car like from a dealership with like a warranty and a car note and all the things. And I remember I went there.
I want to be Za'Nia when I grow up.
And when I went to the dealership, I had a credit card since college, like a little Amazon one. So I built up my credit in like this like really, I don't know, just like normal way.
Go ahead.
And they told me my credit was weak. I had a high credit score, but they're like, your credit is weak. You have weak credit. You need a cosigner. And they were like, this credit isn't a thing. And I was like, weak credit? It's like, now what does that mean? I was like, so I have this high number. What can I get for it? But
Not Chuck E. Cheese is in my brain right now. I'm done.
I was like, what am I supposed to get with this stuff? So yeah, all that to say, like, I just think when you think about it as like tools and resources, until the switch is flipped, it's so hard to think of it that way. But it's like, even now being able to visualize like, oh, after this many years in this house, I can take my equity in this house and go get another house. And like that being something I'm planning for. But like until you're in those conversations, you just never know like what you can do with it. And I think a lot of my friends always ask
But you
me,
had a job.
did I have a job? Let's see. I think what I had was consistency. So I had multiple years on my taxes reporting as an artist with steady income. So
Y'all heard that?
I had multiple years of that. So it wasn't like I went from a job to then 1 year being like, I'm freelance. And so like banks saw that I had been sustaining myself for a long time.
Go ahead, Za'Nia.
But that was my commitment to not having a 9-to-5. So I started that early. And
Come on, self-commitment.
listen, and people were like, you don't need to do your taxes when you're really young. They're like, you don't have to. But it paid off because I had this history of seeing my income grow with this freelance work. So it wasn't like banks trusted me. Whatever that means when you go in there. They trusted me.
There's definitions to all that, but the fact that you had, it connects to the piece of wellness that you were talking about, right? Of like, there was a whole chunk of how much of this new system that's fresh to you do you understand? And so while there may have been some concerns and you're thinking, okay, well, what is the timeline for like, if things go bad, what does it look like? But that's also you understanding the wellness versus the illness in the situation, right? Like if you know what illness looks like, then you can also have an idea of what wellness looks like as it pertains to your ability to own a home, to maintain a home, sustain a home, like all of these things. And you were asking the right questions and taking the right steps forward. So kudos, because that's no small feat.
Yeah, it was a learning curve.
Proud.
Learning curves.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Okay, who got the next question?
Let's see. I think it's for me. Yeah. Okay. For Anna, what are some things you notice about creative people when you were helping them to manage their finances?
There are a lot of folks who, while are uncomfortable with the notion of the starving artist, are accepting of the notion of the starving artist. So there's this idea that while they're not the biggest fan of it, they're like, well, it kind of comes with the territory. And there's a huge piece of me that's like, it doesn't have to come with the territory if we get a clear definition of like what financial wellness looks like and then get really clear on numbers. Sometimes it feels really unfortunate. Like, I don't want anyone to feel like they have to accept that for themselves. I can also appreciate that there's an understanding that maybe for a period of time before someone gets into the groove of learning who their ideal clients are and how to secure them, you know, what does the contract process look like? What is a typical timeline for moving a project forward? Things like that, where it's like there's a steep learning curve in the formation of the business, regardless of whether or not the person is a creative. But there's this whole other piece of creative, a need or a necessity around going with a creative flow that really honors the creative and their own process. That it's like, once we get a better idea of even what that flow looks like, we can figure out how to structure these other layers or elements that empower them financially, but also for the operations of their business.
And that makes me think about, I think, the work I've seen you do over the year, Vie, and like being able to like using like how you use your funding, that the grant funds that I've seen you like use for projects, like how you use them is very like, how do I say it? It feels very, it feels so intentional, and it feels like you can make it work for what you have going on and what you're envisioning. But then to even sometimes see you scale your idea to not like stretch that money too far. You know what I mean? Because I think sometimes people and artists fall into the trap of, I got $10,000, I'm gonna do a $75,000 project with $10,000. And it's like, please don't. Please don't.
It just stresses everybody out.
Please,
and then people aren't having fun anymore at that point, and then
Nobody's
what's it
having
for
fun.
at that point?
Yeah.
But I mean, only like, yeah, stretching it that far is kind of what shows you where too far is.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
and I think until you have it in your hand, like until you have, let's say you get a grant for like 25,000 or something, and I remember when Tangible got its first like 25K grant, it felt like so much money. It was like, oh my God, we like made it. It's so exciting. And it was like, okay, so after we think about programming for a year off of 25K, paying a fiscal sponsor and all the things, it was like, okay, so we even had, because of our plans where we'd even priced ourselves out of fairly compensating people. And for that first year, people were just so like flexible with us because they were like, oh, y'all finally got money? Oh, we'll take whatever you got for us. So it was like, then it moved into like, I would say, like then the language gets more specific around like, this is a stipend for your time. It's not necessarily your fair, like your actual rate or like full compensation. Like, I can stipend you for your time with this amount of money. And yeah, so I think just like even once you finally have it, learning like what you're actually working with, even in language and all those things, where it's like, okay, now in this next budget, we want to work on fairly compensating people for their time. What does it look like for people to get their actual rates? And then like, what does that project look like based off of that scale versus the imaginary 10K can go the whole way type vibe.
I mean, it's always an interesting expansion contraction conversation too, of like, again, I can, you know, trying to figure out who's paying people their full rate as a peer and a colleague versus the same, what rate can be paid to them when they're hiring or being hired by a big client, the city or the state or a corporation. You know, like, I think that expansion contraction is tricky to navigate, and also important to navigate when also trying to learn or working with peers and colleagues and friends too, of like, I have it now, I don't have it this time. Like the expansion contraction, like, can you ride with me on this one or not this time? You know, like those were like, I think the relationships inside of no budget at all, we're just figuring it out, to like, oh, we got some money, and like, oh my gosh, this isn't that as much as I thought it was, right? Like that expansion contraction journey can be anchored and supported through your relationships too, to like get out of that mindset. You know, like the people that you're working with can help with that or hinder.
I guess I'm also curious, maybe both of you can respond, but when it comes to, I think you were the first person I had ever kind of worked with that was like really intentional about when you were bartering, like what bartering looked like. When we talk about currency and money, bartering is a form of that. And so it's like, when do you feel comfortable to like insert that, or like when, yeah.
Or yeah, no, I mean, like, I'm always comfortable if that's the case. If this thing doesn't have a budget, I'm just always completely clear on the upfront. When I say upfront, I mean the initial email I'm sending you. Hey, I'd like you to be a part of this. This is a volunteer experience. I am asking you to volunteer your time. I'm always if that's the case, if there isn't a budget for the thing. And I think that has saved me a lot of complicated conversations with people, and you know, like I'm always comfortable to do it. I just am insistent on doing it up front, off jump.
As somebody who works with money and works with people around business management and things like that, how do you feel about bartering? Like, I'm just curious.
I think it can be similar to how we were talking about money. Like, you're like, yeah, it's a tool, it's a resource. It's another tool. It's another resource for folks to use. And so I found that in instances where they've utilized bartering, it was often associating a value to whatever it was that the work they were offering, and there was a value associated to what it was that was being given in return, so that the exchange still felt even based on maybe what the dollar amounts would have been, but for the dollars themselves not being exchanged.
I also consider a barter when somebody doesn't have my full rate, or I don't have somebody's full rate. Or this isn't about I don't know if this is about bartering, but it's just something I want to share. But like, let's say you ask me to do something and you don't have the full rate, and I'm willing to do it for less for whatever reason. I always encourage people, and I always make sure in the invoice to put the full amount, and then articulate how much of a discount or how much am I bartering or giving away in this instance, so people are aware of like
What the full rate is.
Yeah, what the full rate is, and that like I am being generous in this moment in this way, and maybe I'll do it again, or maybe I won't, or now you know what my full rate is if you didn't know, or you know, like, just so we're always clear. I think that's like
There's
the
a
same thing. I think
transparency.
there's a transparency. I think sometimes creative people get weary and uncomfortable around if things are transactional. I think creatives get funny style if it is a transaction. Like it's like this, like this shouldn't be transactional. Like we're in this for whatever reasons. But sometimes it is transactional. Sometimes it should be. And I think sometimes it's healthier if it is a transaction. I think we kind of get caught up in like not wanting it to be the case sometimes. And I think that keeping that clarity can be healthy.
No, that's fair. When I think of folks that I work with, if they're creatives, it's less likely for them to operate in their artistry being connected to a business. And I often have to remind them, like, at the end of the day, part of the job of your business is to make a profit. Like, that's why it's a business in particular. And so really leaning into, I understand that sometimes it feels transactional, but that's really important if you're running a business. Like, there are transactions taking place. And so, yeah.
Especially if you want to keep going. I mean, like, things cost money, you know what I'm saying? And I know that, I mean, yeah, things cost money. Space, people rent, and like, not even just your house rent, but like, if you need space to create the things you create, you have to pay rent at that. Like, something's gonna cost money at a point. So, yeah.
Well, and that's one of the things that I think is interesting about most people don't feel comfortable talking about it until it's like a dire situation.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not casual or commonplace to just like be with your other artist friends talking about money. Like, oh, like what is, like what's going on with money? And I remember like early on when in my artist career, when nobody was making any money really, when we were all kind of starting out, all kind of emerging, there wasn't like this like fixation on it. 'Cause everybody knew nobody was getting nothing, so it was like, oh,
Right.
it's fine.
Then people started getting money.
Yeah,
Then it was like,
I was like, where is that? And I remember we actually had one of my friends, Anissa, was working at Mia at the time, and it was our first time getting like a large enough budget to like pay ourselves, pay the people that we were like showcasing, and like everybody was able to get something from it. And so it was like everybody's first time even being like, oh, this exists. Like you can literally go in, get a fee, and like pay people to do a thing. But I think even in artist spaces, I think it's hard for artists to visualize where money goes or where it comes from or who gets paid for what. It's kind of like watching the credits of a movie. Like there's so many jobs in film when you look at the credits, like all those people got paid for their thing, but we don't hear about them. We don't know about those jobs. We don't know. So it's like consulting fee. Like when I know there were arts consultants, I was like, people get paid just to like show up and like talk about a thing. It's like, wow, okay, that's a thing. But until then, people are often using you as an arts consultant and you don't know it. And you're just like, oh, I thought we were just talking. And it's like, and you didn't get paid for that. It's like, oh, I can get paid for this. And so it's like, you just don't know where money even would be until you're having those conversations. It's like, oh no, that's a job. That's a whole separate job.
Like what the structure of it could look like.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is why I love your Instagram question about the rates. Because it was just like, when people think about it or have to articulate, what is your rate? Or what is the value of your hour? What is the... And I think artists have such a hard time pinpointing that. It's like, what is my creativity worth per hour?
oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, I guess we can kind of touch on that even here right now in this moment. You know, like I'm always adamant that like nobody can pay you your worth. Like that's just not a thing. You are value. There's no value that we can put on you as a human being. You are priceless. But what we can put a price on is the quality of the experience of what it is to work with you. That's what people are paying for. When I show up to do a show, I forgot my music. Hold on, I gotta download it one more time. Hold on. Oh wait, I left my outfit. I gotta go back home real quick. Let me put my stuff in here. I'll be right back. Oh my bad. Can I get a Man, that's adding up time, stress, frustration. And so it's, however easy it is to work with you, the experience. Are you sending 50 emails back and forth to make sure you know what's going on? That's eating up time. Time is money. If you're able to communicate clearly within a couple of emails, you show up on time, you got your stuff, you do the thing, you go. Man, that was easy. That's where the price starts to go up. And I say this as being the person who's been both of these people. Very clearly, okay? I've definitely been that person who left my stuff at home and had to run back. And I didn't have a car at the time, so I had to take the bus back, or I had to get an Uber one way, and then I've been that person. So I don't say it from some mountaintop of like not making any mistakes.
No, but you touch on something really important, right? Which is sometimes when we think of the hourly rate, what are the things outside of maybe the more typical exchange that we think of that are associated with the value, which the summation of what you shared made me think of, like how professional does this person show up in this space, that they're prepared, they're ready to go, they do the thing well. And at the end, am I singing their praises? Are they somebody that I want to bring back and do something again? Are they somebody that I want to recommend for something moving forward based on the positive experience that I had? The question that you ask is such a good one around hourly rate, and it's something that a lot of folks have question marks about. And relative to getting to a number, in a process that I do with some of my clients, it's really about figuring out, well, what is your personal budget? What is the operational budget that you have for your business? And then planning for taxes, because that's something that a lot of folks don't do that's important to do, right? And once you've got this figured out of 100%, we know what these percentages are, so that when you get the job that's 10,000, or you get the job that's 25,000, or you get the job that's 300,000, you know, based on your percentages, we have to set this aside for taxes, we're setting this aside for what our operational budget is, and we're setting this aside to be able to pay ourselves. And so then you know the delineation of each of those from an operational standpoint, and so the amount might change, but you know what portion of the dollars that are coming in can be delineated for that thing, so that you're consistent across the board with any amount that's coming in for a project.
Lord.
Listen, you got me on the taxes.
And that, yeah, you have said this to me quite a few times. I'm like, that's what I'm supposed to be doing right now.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Just like that. It's slick. It's easy. Once you get it set up, then it really is a matter of just, if my percentages, if I'm being super conservative and I'm setting aside 35% for taxes and I've got 65 left, so I've got another 35 that I do for operations and 30 that I give to myself, then anytime an amount of money comes in, it's 30, 35, 30, 35. 35, 35, 30. $10, $100, clean numbers are always nice, but
Lord Jesus.
But that's the easiest way to plan for those situations, which then goes back to the initial question.
How do we do that in today's economy?
As long as you know what your percentages are. If those percentages shift, right? Like taxes typically don't, but the other two could. Like maybe your operational needs go down, which then allows you to pay yourself more. Okay, great. Then we just utilize the new percentage moving forward to delineate the money for the project that's coming in.
Y'all got that? I got it. You got it? You definitely got it.
I don't know if I got it.
Okay,
well,
we can chat. We can chat.
I don't know if I got it.
All right, who got the next
I
question?
think I do. What are some key habits or mindsets you wish you'd built earlier?
I think it comes back to that same one that I started with of like not spending the entire budget all the time. Like 100% out.
An important habit I think of for business owners, for creatives in particular, are when you're working through your projects, tracking your expenses, because sometimes you're not aware of how quickly money is going out, that you're spending the entire budget, but also the awareness of like where the money is going. So, even thinking of this morning, right? Okay, we've got the space here, what it is that had to be purchased for furniture and, around the room, but also like, coffees that came in for folks, whether or not there's parking that's required. And so thinking about even the smaller expenses that are going out, ensuring tracking also is beneficial because it lowers the tax bill that you've got. So that's a huge help as it pertains to how does this help cascade in the business moving forward.
I want to touch on Anna. So I've worked with Anna, and so I want to touch on like some of the space that Anna has held in their role as a consultant and in what they do. We had a few, so there's a lot of different ways to work with a consultant, or I wouldn't say coaching. This was a consultant relationship, right?
Yeah.
So one thing that you did that was really helpful, we had a few sessions where you just kind of held space for me to actually go through and go through my bank statements. Like you just held a Zoom. And I just spent an hour just going through and entering my expenses into QuickBooks. Priceless. Thank God that the county had this option available to us. So like, I don't know what other cities have small business services available to artists or small business owners. If you're an artist and a creative, you are a small business owner. If you don't know that, you definitely are.
Second that.
But yeah, just like, I just want to illuminate that, like the value of that, and like maybe that's not something I can do all the time with a consultant, but even just like body doubling with my friends to hold a Zoom so that we can do that kind of detailed work. And I also wanted to ask you too, like a lot of the work that we did together was like establishing a lot of things, but I'm wondering, we haven't been working together right now, but like what would you say would be a good like next step in working together, or like for people who've never worked with a consultant before, what would you suggest in how they could start a relationship with a consultant and why? And I also like what I've learned from the time and work that we did together. Like if you've never worked with a consultant, you're probably gonna use up all your time not super wisely. So my like takeaway is like working with you twice a year is probably smart, or 4 times a year, once a quarter to check in. So like, anyway, just like what else would you suggest in terms of like creative people who've never worked with a person like you before?
Figuring out first what your needs are, like what buckets of subject matter those needs fall into, right? So I focus on operations. So, you know, we sat on call and went through expenses, confirming, okay, what are the categories? Are we making sure that we're entering this correctly? What dates did these happen during? Did you make sure that you did a set aside for X, Y, and Z? So thinking about what it is that you need as a creative who's a business owner, and in running your business, what are the specialties that are needed? Is it really more like marketing or sales, or someone to help with your website or cybersecurity, depending on the type of information that's getting exchanged? So first, I guess, to determine if you're going to work with a consultant, what is the subject matter expertise you need the consultant to have? And then from there, determine how it is that time is best spent. Absolutely, I think that operations is something that is best tended to minimally once a quarter. I think that often there are monthly tasks that can be done that can help support a business owner creative who's like, hey, what are the priorities I need to tend to for the next 30 days, or how do I need to focus my time? Because getting in some of those habits is great, so that then you can move to the once a quarter, the once every 6 months, and then ideally it's maybe a year check-in, or, you know, as often as needed from there. But those are 2 really big things, is to determine what is the subject matter and then how it is that you want to spend time.
And if you could work with a financial or some sort of consultant, what do you think you would want consulting on?
I think as a creative and somebody who's not often in spaces where they have like 401ks and things like that, like what setups and opportunities and avenues for like that type of saving, for like that kind of savings and like delegation of money outside of just like expenses and things like that. Like what could I invest in? What are things, like how can I leverage certain things? Or I think that would be
your next step.
Yeah, that would be an area of interest for mine. Because I think, and I think this one for me builds off of habits or mindsets. I have an uncle who runs a landscaping company, and he's one of the only people I know that does freelance work when I was younger, in like a kind of a specific way. And he let me sit in on one of his financial sessions. And so it's my first time just even like seeing like the red and the black, the conversations about where money goes or how it's allocated, and like that was like, I was like,
so cool.
So I think consultants it's mind opening just to even see like what's available and like what avenues there are for consulting.
Did you ask him, or
no, he offered it to me as a Christmas gift.
Did he?
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I was like, and I was like 21 at the time, so I was just like, and like now that I'm older, I'm like, yeah.
That's really cool. I want that for everybody. I think that's really cool. I'm also never shy to ask people for wisdom, insight, advice. Like, I definitely, that inspires me. Like, I don't necessarily have family members who work with consultants in that way. However, I'm not afraid to ask somebody that I know does have those types of relationships, you know. Yeah, mentorship, consulting, that's like stuff that's a big deal to me, because the purpose and the value to me of mentorship or coaching or consulting is like, those are folks that I seek out, so folks who have wisdom. Wisdom is really cultivated through actual lived experience. So I trust people's wisdom more than I trust their knowledge about a subject matter. A lot of people have knowledge. Unfortunately, sure, maybe that means I don't necessarily work with people who are fresh out of college or just starting out. No beef. I'm very interested in learning from people who have wisdom, because it's rooted in actual experience in a way that I think is useful and important. So you're inspiring me to like, okay, what else can I learn about, like, I guess other things that I'm learning in this conversation that I would be interested in gaining wisdom about. I'm always interested in how people scale projects as art makers. I know how to navigate and spend within a certain frame or budget, you know, but like, how do you scale an idea up, and how do you navigate how much money you how do you do that? How much money do you need? Where do you get it?
Last thoughts, maybe. Something that you mentioned I think is really important from a habit perspective, which is when I think of those 3 buckets, right? When folks are figuring out what percentages, a part of a personal set aside should be retirement, should be investments, should be planning for the things that maybe aren't currently a part of the ideal lifestyle that somebody wants to build, that need to be a part of the equation, literally a part of the equation, so that the dollars and the set aside can start to happen, even if it's small at first. Like, just getting in that rote habit of doing that makes a big difference, and circles back to kind of where we started with the wellness of, I don't know, the way I think about wellness is, what's the sustainability of the thing moving forward? And if you have the set asides early on, then it's working just as hard for you as you do for it.
Boom. I love that. Did you have another last thing?
No, I don't think I did.
Yeah, no. My cup is full. Thank you all so much. I'm really glad that you chose to sit down and have these conversations, start them, generate them, and more to come.
Thank
Great to
you.
be here.
Yeah.
Yay! We did that.